Here's what most men miss. She suddenly buys new clothes, she's obsessed with new interests, and she's reading self-help books like she's reinventing her life. She tells you, "I'm just investing in myself." But what she's not telling you is who inspired the transformation. Men get fooled by this all the time because it looks like progress. But it's not progress. It's preparation. Preparation for another man. And if you're not paying attention, you'll support her growth while she slowly walks away from you. In this video, I'll reveal the 3 changes women make when another man is involved, so you can stop living in denial and start seeing the truth for what it really is. Let me ask you something straight. Have you ever looked at a woman you thought you knew inside and out? And then suddenly, she wasn't the same person anymore? Her habits, her energy, her vibe, like she'd been swapped out with a different version of herself overnight. You start wondering, what's going on? Did she find herself? Is she having some midlife awakening? Here's the part most men don't want to hear. 9 times out of 10, those sudden changes don't come out of thin air. They don't just happen because she read one self-help book or because she suddenly discovered the gym. Behind those shifts, there's usually a catalyst, and that catalyst often has a name, a face, and access to her daily life. Women will tell themselves, and you, that they're growing, that they're finally living authentically. But growth isn't usually an overnight revolution. Real growth is gradual. It builds on who you already are. When a woman flips the script on multiple parts of her identity at once, it's not some mystical self-discovery. It's because someone new just walked into the picture and she's recalibrating herself to be seen through his eyes. Now, let me be clear. This doesn't always mean she's physically cheating. Most of the time, what's happening is emotional preparation. She's testing out a new version of herself, almost like trying on a new outfit to see if she fits better with another man's lifestyle, values, or vision. It's not random. It's not harmless. And if you're not paying attention, you'll end up applauding her growth while she quietly drifts further away from you. So before you dismiss her changes as just a phase, you need to understand this. When a woman shifts multiple layers of herself simultaneously, that's a red flag. And the first, most visible shift you'll notice, the one most men explain away as positive, has to do with her appearance. Number 1, her appearance becomes an obsession. This is the most obvious transformation, but it's also the one most men completely misinterpret. You see her hitting the gym, buying new clothes, changing her hair, and you think, finally she's taking care of herself. This is great. No, it's not great. It's a warning sign dressed up as progress. Because let me break something to you. Women don't overhaul their appearance for no reason. If she ignored your invitations to work out together for years, if she shrugged off your compliments about new styles with, "I'm comfortable as I am," then suddenly she's lifting weights, shopping like she's on a fashion show, and staring at herself in the mirror. You better believe she's not doing it for herself. She's doing it because someone else's eyes are watching. Pay attention to the details. If the new man in her orbit is a corporate type, suddenly she's in fitted business suits, heels, and polished hairstyles. If he's athletic, she's dripping in yoga pants, new sneakers, posting sweaty selfies at 6 a.m. If he's artistic or edgy, suddenly she's experimenting with looks that she once mocked as impractical. Women adapt their style to the type of attention they crave. And that adaptation doesn't happen in a vacuum. It's a response to someone specific. And the hair, never underestimate the hair. A woman doesn't change her hair randomly. A drastic cut, a bold color, a sudden style overhaul. That's not just, "I felt like trying something new." That's a statement. It's her way of saying, "I'm not the same woman you knew. I'm presenting myself to someone new." Every snip of the scissors is a signal. Every bottle of dye is a declaration. Let me give you an example. Tom, a 52-year-old engineer, spent years suggesting to his wife that they should join a gym together. She always brushed it off. "I'm fine the way I am," she'd say. Then a new colleague joined her company. Within weeks, Tom noticed she'd signed up for a personal trainer, bought a wardrobe full of sports gear, and even changed her hairstyle to something younger and trendier. At first, Tom was happy. He thought, she's finally prioritizing her health. But deep down, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. The timing was too perfect. The transformation was too sudden. And when he saw the way she lit up telling stories about her new co-worker's fitness regime, the truth hit him like a punch in the gut. Those changes weren't about her health. They weren't about Tom. They were about being seen. Here's the painful part. When you compliment her new look, she'll brush it off with, "Thanks, I'm doing this for me." That's the lie men fall for, because women rarely change for themselves alone. Change, especially dramatic change, is almost always about an audience, and right now, you might not be that audience. So, what should you do when you notice these changes? Don't overreact. Don't accuse. Don't start competing with the ghost of another man by suddenly hitting the gym twice as hard yourself. That only makes you look insecure. Instead, observe. Pay attention to the consistency of these changes. If they align suspiciously well with someone new in her life, that's your red flag. Understand this. Her appearance is the surface-level indicator. It's the smoke before the fire. What lies beneath is far more dangerous. Because if her hair, her clothes, and her body are shifting to catch fresh eyes, then her interests, passions, and even her personality won't be far behind. And that's where most men get blindsided. They think the wardrobe upgrade is harmless, even attractive. But when she starts reshaping not just how she looks, but what she loves, that's when you realize you're no longer the man she's evolving for. Number 2, she suddenly discovers new passions and interests. Now, at first glance, this might look like a good thing. You see her picking up hobbies, getting into new music, talking about sports, or books she never cared for before. You think, wow, she's growing. She's becoming more open-minded. And that's where men get tricked, because you're looking at borrowed enthusiasm, not authentic growth. Here's the psychology behind it. Human beings mirror the people they want to connect with. For women, this isn't always conscious. It's evolutionary programming. When she's drawn to another man, her subconscious reshapes itself around his world. His passions become her passions. His hobbies become her hobbies. She convinces herself she's just expanding her horizons. But in reality, she's building compatibility where none existed before. Watch for this. The woman who once rolled her eyes at sports suddenly knows the names of players, the scores, even the stats. The one who mocked certain music now buys tickets to concerts. The homebody who hated outdoor activities suddenly signs up for hiking trips and ziplining. These aren't random. They're signals. They're bridges being built between her and someone else. And here's the kicker. It feels real to her. She'll swear up and down that she's genuinely enjoying these new things. And in the moment, she believes it. But the test of authenticity is time. Real growth sticks. Borrowed interests evaporate as soon as the inspiration disappears. Let me give you a story. Mark, a 47-year-old carpenter, was married to a woman who despised baseball. She called it boring, said she couldn't sit through 9 innings if her life depended on it. Then, one summer, Mark noticed a shift. Suddenly, she was wearing a team jersey, staying up late to watch games, and even debating batting averages at dinner. Mark was impressed. He thought, maybe she's finally trying to bond with me. But he was wrong. The truth surfaced when he realized she wasn't talking baseball with him. She was talking baseball with a new coworker who lived and breathed the sport. And sure enough, when that coworker's contract ended and he moved to another city, her love for baseball vanished overnight. No more games, no more jerseys. Just like that, the passion disappeared. Because it was never hers to begin with. That's how you spot it. Real interests weave themselves into the fabric of a person's identity. They grow roots, but when it's borrowed, it's like a temporary tattoo, loud at first, but it fades the moment the situation changes. So, what does this mean for you? It means don't celebrate too quickly when she suddenly broadens her horizons. Don't confuse mimicry with maturity. Pay attention to the timeline. Did this new passion appear right around the time a new man entered her orbit? Does it match suspiciously well with his lifestyle, his hobbies, his culture? And if so, you need to start asking yourself a hard question. Is she growing for herself, or is she adapting for him? Now, let me add this. Don't jump to conclusions based on one hobby. Maybe she genuinely discovered a new interest. That happens. But if you notice multiple new passions sprouting all at once, all perfectly aligned with a particular influence, and especially if they fade when that influence disappears, that's not growth. That's shape-shifting. And shape-shifting is not about you. It's about creating compatibility with someone else. So while the sudden change in appearance is your surface-level red flag, this shift in passions and interests cuts deeper. Because once her tastes, hobbies, and worldview start molding to another man, she's not just changing how she looks, she's changing who she is. And if she's willing to reshape who she is, then the next step is inevitable. She'll start reshaping the relationship itself. And that's when you'll hear the words that make men's stomachs drop. I need space. I need to grow. I need to find myself. Number 3, she becomes psychologically enlightened, or at least that's how she'll frame it. This is the stage that cuts the deepest because it doesn't look like betrayal at first. It looks mature. It looks healthy. She starts using language that sounds sophisticated. Boundaries, self-development, emotional independence. She tells you she needs more space. She says she's been reading psychology books, going to workshops, talking about how the two of you are too codependent. And on the surface, you think, okay, this is good. She wants to grow. But here's the brutal truth. When those conversations start happening in sync with all the other changes, it's not enlightenment. It's preparation. She's not just creating space to find herself. She's creating space to let someone else in. Let's break it down. When she shifts from we language to I language, I want to travel. I need to focus on my career. I don't know what I want anymore. That's not just independence. That's detachment. That's her slowly pulling the future out from under your feet. One sentence at a time. And then comes the new rules. She creates distance in intimacy, both physical and emotional. She says routines feel mechanical. She wants deeper connection. Translation: she's comparing what she has with you to what she thinks she could have with someone else. Every philosophical conversation about your relationship is really a disguised measurement. Do I feel more alive here or over there? David, a 58-year-old senior manager, learned this the hard way. His wife had always been close, always engaged, always planning the future together. But after attending a weekend psychology workshop, she came home with new language. She told him she needed more space, that she was rethinking her identity, that she wanted to develop as an individual. David, being supportive, thought he was doing the right thing. He encouraged her, gave her space, even bought her more books on personal growth. But the more he supported, the further she drifted. And what he didn't realize until later was that all this growth wasn't just for her. It was for the other man who had become part of her circle. His support had unknowingly built the runway for her emotional exit. That's the sting. You think you're helping her become a better version of herself? In reality, you're funding the escape plan. Now, don't get me wrong. Not every woman who reads psychology books or attends a workshop is lining up a replacement. But context is everything. If these conversations about growth and space happen at the same time as sudden changes in her appearance and passions, then it's no coincidence. That's a pattern. And patterns tell you far more than isolated signs ever will. So, what do you do with this information? You stay calm. You don't argue about whether she should have boundaries. That's a losing game, because boundaries in themselves are healthy. The issue is not the concept. The issue is the timing and the direction. Is she growing with you, or is she growing away from you? That's the only question that matters, because once she starts speaking a new psychological language, what she's really doing is redrawing the map of her life. And if your name isn't on that new map, then you need to see the writing on the wall. And here's the part that will hit hardest. The more you try to hold on during this stage, the more you'll prove her narrative that you're too dependent. You'll play right into the role she's casting you in. And the man she's comparing you to? He doesn't have to do anything. He just has to exist as an alternative. This is where men lose themselves. They try to negotiate their way back into a role that's already been rewritten. But the truth is, once she's rewriting the story, you're not the editor anymore. You're just a footnote. Which is why the only way forward is to understand the psychology behind this stage. And that's exactly what we're going to break down next. Now let's go deeper. You've seen the three obvious changes: appearance, interests, and psychology. But here's the real question. Why do these shifts even happen in the first place? What's the deeper psychology driving all of this? And more importantly, how should you, as a man, respond when you notice them? First, you need to understand this. It's not always about conscious betrayal. Most women don't sit down and plot, "I'm going to reinvent myself because there's another man." What actually happens is rooted in evolutionary psychology. Women are biologically wired to test alignment with the strongest available option. That doesn't always mean money or looks. It could mean emotional strength, social influence, or even just the spark of novelty. These shifts are not always about cheating in the physical sense. They're often emotional preparations, subtle tests to see if she might fit better with someone else's world. Let me share an example. John, a 60-year-old retired military man, noticed his wife going through all three shifts: new wardrobe, sudden love for hiking, constant talk about personal growth. At first, he thought it was harmless. Then he realized those changes matched the lifestyle of a man she'd recently met through a community group. Now here's where most men would panic. They'd start chasing, trying to become more like the new guy, desperately morphing into whatever version they think she wants. But John didn't. He recognized the pattern for what it was: not growth, not self-discovery, but adaptation. And instead of competing, he did something far more powerful. He stood firm. Here's the hard truth. When a woman is changing away from you instead of with you, that's already your answer. Chasing her only makes you smaller. Trying to resurrect the old version of her is a trap. You can't breathe life back into a version she's already abandoned. And reshaping yourself to match her new interests, that's the fastest way to lose respect. Not just hers, but your own. So what should you do? First, don't compete with the other man. The moment you try, you've already lost. You've positioned yourself as the weaker option, chasing her approval. A man of substance never fights for scraps of attention. Second, don't attempt to recreate the past. The version of her you remember doesn't exist anymore, not because she grew, but because she's adapting to a different source of inspiration. Clinging to her old self is clinging to a ghost. Third, focus on maintaining your frame, your self-respect, your dignity, your boundaries. These are the anchors that keep you grounded. A woman who's shifting away will feel the pull of that stability. She'll either recognize she's losing something valuable, or she'll keep drifting. Either way, you don't beg, you don't chase, you don't shrink. And finally, accept the truth with clarity. If she's rewriting herself for someone else, let that be your signal. Don't view it as a rejection of your worth. View it as her inability to align with who you are. That distinction matters because it reminds you that her changes are not proof you're lacking. They're proof she's searching elsewhere. Remember, men, your value doesn't lie in holding on to someone who's already walking away. Your value lies in protecting your self-respect while she makes her choice. John did exactly that. He didn't scream, he didn't beg, he didn't transform himself into a clone of another man. He observed, he accepted, and he let her path reveal itself. That's how you walk away with dignity, not desperation. So here's the takeaway. When you notice these three changes, appearance, new interests, and psychological enlightenment, understand that they're rarely random. They're usually preparation for another man. And your best move isn't to fight, chase, or negotiate. Your best move is to recognize reality, hold your frame, and protect your value. Because the moment you compromise your dignity to compete for someone who's already halfway out the door, you've already lost the only battle that matters, the one for your self-respect. Now let's bring this home. What I've shared with you isn't meant to make you paranoid or to turn you into a detective snooping for evidence. This isn't about stalking her social media, memorizing her calendar, or accusing her of every new habit she picks up. No, this is about awareness. It's about sharpening your instincts so you can see the difference between real growth and emotional preparation for someone else. Because the truth is, none of these changes happen in a vacuum. A sudden obsession with her appearance, new passions that perfectly align with another man's world, a psychological awakening that conveniently creates distance between the two of you. Those aren't random. Those are signals. And if you're awake enough to read them, you'll save yourself from years of confusion, denial, and humiliation. But here's the bigger lesson. Your worth as a man isn't proven by how hard you can hold on to someone who's slipping away. It's proven by how firmly you can hold on to yourself, your dignity, your self-respect. That's what separates the men who crumble from the men who walk away with their head high. So when you see these patterns, don't fight to resurrect the old version of her. Don't compete with the new man she's reshaping herself for. Don't lose yourself in the process of trying to keep her. Because the most powerful statement you can make is simple. If she's growing away from you, you let her. And you move forward as a man who refuses to live in someone else's shadow. That's the cold awakening. Painful, yes, but it's also liberating. Because once you stop clinging, you start reclaiming. You reclaim your energy, your focus, and your freedom. And that's where real growth begins. Not in chasing someone who's drifting, but in building a life that no one can take from you. If this message hit you hard, that's because it was supposed to. These are truths most men never hear, and that's why this channel exists. So if you want more insights like this, raw, unfiltered, and designed to keep you one step ahead, make sure you subscribe right now. Hit that like button, drop a comment below telling me your thoughts, and share this with another man who needs to wake up. Because here, we don't sugarcoat. We don't waste time with illusions. We talk about reality, so you can take back control of your love life, and more importantly, control of yourself.